Ben was halfway through mowing his lawn when he saw the spaceship land next door. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and then blinked again, but the sleek metallic craft was still there, gleaming under the sun like some kind of futuristic luxury car. It was small, no larger than a trailer home, and it looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, not in his quiet suburban neighborhood. He glanced around, expecting someone else to notice it, but all the other houses were silent curtains drawn against the afternoon heat. He was just about to go back inside to grab his phone and take a picture when the door of the spaceship hissed open, and out stepped her. She was tall and impossibly graceful, with skin that shimmered in shades of silver and violet, like the surface of a gemstone catching the light. Her eyes were large and bright like twin galaxies, and her hair flowed down her back in smooth waves. She wore a strange form-fitting suit that seemed to change color as she moved, almost blending into the surroundings like camouflage. Ben stood there frozen as she walked towards him, stopping a few feet away. She tilted her head, looking him up and down with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and amusement. She spoke, her voice calm and melodious, yet carrying an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. "You are the closest human to my new domicile," she said in a voice that sounded as if she were announcing something incredibly important. "I am Zix." She continued, her gaze unwavering. "And I require assistance. It is my bonding season." Ben stared at her, his mind racing as he tried to process her words. Bonding season, what did that even mean? He'd heard of weird neighbors before, but this was something else. Zix raised an eyebrow, apparently waiting for a response. When none came, she took a step closer, her eyes narrowing slightly as if assessing him. "I have been informed that human males are often willing to assist with matters of bonding and companionship," she stated, "and I believe you meet the necessary criteria." Bonding season?" Ben finally managed to say, his voice coming out in a high-pitched squeak that he immediately regretted. "Are you asking me to, help you with that?" Zix gave a single nod, her expression perfectly serious. "Correct. During this time, my people seek out compatible partners to establish temporary bonds. These bonds are essential for our well-being, and I have chosen you as a candidate." Ben felt his face heat up, the implications of her words sinking in. This had to be some kind of prank, right? But as he looked into her intense, unblinking eyes, he realized she was completely serious. Before he could respond, she extended her hand to him, palm up. In her hand rested a small crystal that pulsed with a soft pink light. "This is a bonding crystal," she explained. "When held by two beings with compatible energy, it facilitates a connection between them. It is customary." He looked at the crystal, then back at her, then back at the crystal. You really want me to hold that thing with you?" "Yes," she replied, as if this were the most normal request in the world. "It will help us determine if you are indeed compatible with me during this season." Ben swallowed hard, trying to ignore the strange flutter in his chest. He didn't know what he was getting himself into, but a part of him couldn't help but be intrigued. This wasn't how he'd planned to spend his Saturday afternoon, but how often did a person get asked to assist with an alien bonding ritual? With a deep breath, he reached out, took her hand in his, and felt a warm, tingling sensation spread through his fingers as their hands closed around the crystal together. And that's when everything changed. The moment Ben's fingers touched the crystal, a strange warmth spread up his arm, settling somewhere near his chest. It was subtle at first, like the warmth of a campfire on a cool night, but soon it intensified, filling his entire body with a tingling sensation that left him feeling strangely lightheaded. Zix watched him closely, her intense gaze never wavering. She looked almost pleased, as though this reaction was exactly what she'd expected. "Your energy aligns with mine," she said, her voice soft but filled with certainty. "This is promising." Ben opened his mouth to respond, but words failed him. His mind was a whirl of sensations and questions. He'd agreed to help his new alien neighbor out of curiosity, but he hadn't anticipated feeling this strange connection. It was as if, in that moment, something invisible but powerful bound them together. Zix's eyes narrowed slightly, and she tilted her head, studying him. "You are experiencing the initial effects of the bonding process," she explained, her voice matter-of-fact. "It will intensify over the next several days." "The next several days?" Ben managed, his voice coming out more as a croak than he intended. She nodded, completely serious. "During bonding season, it is customary for both participants to spend extended time together, sharing thoughts, memories, and experiences. This is necessary to establish a complete bond. Ben felt his heart race. So, you're saying we're going to be spending a lot of time together? Precisely, she replied. The bond must be nurtured to reach its full potential. And you appear suitable. He couldn't help but feel both flattered and a little overwhelmed by her directness. Zix was unlike anyone he'd ever met, confident, intense, and seemingly unaware of how strange her proposal sounded to human ears. And yet, there was something oddly captivating about her. Just as he was starting to wrap his mind around the idea of bonding season, a soft chime echoed from her ship. Zix glanced over her shoulder, her expression darkening slightly. It appears I have a message from my people, she said, her tone losing some of its warmth. Excuse me, Ben. Without waiting for a response, she turned and strode back to the ship, her movements graceful yet purposeful. Ben stood there, watching her retreating form, trying to process everything that had just happened. A part of him was tempted to run back inside, lock the door, and pretend he hadn't just agreed to some alien bonding ritual. But another part of him, a larger part, felt inexplicably drawn to her, intrigued by the mystery of it all. Before he could think too deeply, Zix returned, her expression grim. It appears my bonding season has garnered some attention from my planet, she said, her voice tight. They are concerned that I may be forming a bond with a human. Concerned? Ben repeated, frowning. Why would they be concerned? Zix sighed, her usually steady gaze faltering. Humans are viewed with suspicion by my people. They believe emotional bonds with your kind can complicate matters. They do not understand the depth of human emotions, but I find it intriguing. She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw a flash of something he hadn't noticed before, a vulnerability, a curiosity, perhaps even a desire for something beyond the expectations of her own species. Ben swallowed, feeling his heart beat faster. So, what happens if they find out about us? Zix straightened, her expression hardening with resolve. I will not let them interfere. This bonding season is my choice, and I choose to understand what humans call connection. They will not stop me. He couldn't help but feel a rush of admiration for her determination. Despite her calm, composed demeanor, he could tell there was a fire within her, a defiance that seemed to rise in the face of her people's disapproval. She took a step closer, and for the first time, he noticed the faint scent of something floral and otherworldly that seemed to cling to her. Tomorrow, we will begin the next stage of bonding, she said softly. I will need to observe more of your human custom, up close. Ben's cheeks flushed as the implications of her words sank in. Okay. I guess we can figure something out. Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. And for a moment, he could have sworn he saw a flicker of amusement in her gaze. Until then, Ben, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, prepare yourself. With that, she turned and disappeared back into her ship, leaving him standing in his driveway, his mind racing and his heart pounding. As he watched her retreat, he realized that he had no idea what he was getting himself into. And yet, a part of him didn't care. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. The next morning, Ben awoke with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had hardly slept, his mind running over the events of the past few days, his alien neighbor, her bonding season, and the confusing yet thrilling connection that seemed to grow between them. He couldn't believe he was about to embark on some kind of alien bonding ritual, but he felt a pull toward Zix that was undeniable. As he stepped outside, he noticed Zix waiting in his yard, her usually calm demeanor replaced by a faint tension. She looked him up and down as he approached, her gaze intense. Ben, she greeted, her voice steadier than her expression. I must be honest. This bonding ritual, it is not without risk. My people have discovered our connection. They may intervene. Ben's stomach twisted. Intervene? You mean try to stop us? Zix nodded, her eyes darkening. They view my bond with a human as problematic. They fear that emotions may cloud my judgment, make me unfit for duty. She paused, taking a breath before continuing. They have sent a retrieval team to return me to my planet, but I do not wish to leave. I choose to remain here. Ben felt his pulse quicken. What can we do? Her gaze softened, and for a moment, She seemed almost vulnerable. We must complete the bonding process. If our connection becomes strong enough, they will have no authority to separate us. But the ritual requires trust. A complete merging of thoughts and feelings. Ben swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. You're saying we have to open up to each other? Completely? Yes, she replied, her voice a whisper. You must trust me, Ben, as I trust you. It is the only way. A rush of determination surged through him, and he reached out, taking her hand. Then let's do this. Zix, I don't want to lose you, she smiled. A rare, genuine expression that lit up her face. Thank you. Ben! They moved to a secluded area in the yard, away from prying eyes, and Zix pulled out the crystal she had shown him before. But this time, as they both held it, it began to glow with an intense light, filling the air with warmth. Ben felt his heart race, his mind swirling with emotions, fear, excitement, and something deeper he hadn't fully acknowledged until now. As the light grew brighter, he felt a sudden rush of memories, not his own, but hers. He saw flashes of her life on her home planet, moments of loneliness and duty, a longing for connection she had kept hidden even from herself. He saw the vast landscapes of her world, the silvery forests, the 3 glowing moons in the sky, and he felt her desire to explore, to break free from the expectations that had been placed on her. At the same time, he felt his own memories rise to the surface, his quiet life in the suburbs, his longing for something more, his fascination and wonder the first time he had seen her step out of that spaceship. They were no longer 2 separate beings. Their thoughts, emotions, and desires intertwined, merging in a way that felt both overwhelming and exhilarating. Suddenly, the air around them shifted, and a loud hum filled the silence. Ben looked up to see a large, sleek spacecraft descending, its lights trained on them. His heart pounded, but Zix squeezed his hand, her gaze steady. Do not fear, she murmured. We are stronger together. The ship landed, and 2 Etherian guards emerged, their expressions stern as they approached. One of them raised a device, scanning the area around them, his gaze narrowing as he studied the readings. Zix, he said, his voice cold. You are ordered to return with us. Your connection with this human is unorthodox. It is interfering with your duties. But Zix held her ground, her hand still clasped tightly with Ben's. I am within my rights to bond with whomever I choose, she replied, her voice steady. This connection has proven meaningful, and I will not abandon it. The guard hesitated, glancing at his partner. Your people will not approve of this choice. Zix, you will be marked as a defector. She looked at Ben, a soft smile playing on her lips. Then so be it. This is where I belong. Ben felt a surge of pride and admiration for her bravery. He stepped forward, standing by her side. She's not going anywhere. The guards exchanged a look. Then, after a tense pause, they both nodded. Without another word, they retreated to their ship, leaving Ben and Zix standing together in the soft glow of the morning sun. As the ship disappeared into the sky, Ben turned to her, his heart full. You really chose to stay? She nodded, her gaze softening. Yes. Ben, I realize that this connection we share, it is worth more than the expectations of my people. Here, with you, I have found something I never thought possible. He pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her body against his, and for a moment, they simply stood there, wrapped in each other's presence. This was more than just a bond, it was a choice, a shared journey, a new beginning. In the weeks that followed, Ben and Zix settled into a routine that was both extraordinary and surprisingly simple. They shared meals, watched the stars, and discovered more about each other's worlds. Zix taught him about her culture, her planet's traditions, and the beauty of her galaxy, while he showed her the small wonders of Earth, from sunsets to laughter to the simple joy of companionship. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the stars, Zix leaned her head on his shoulder, her eyes filled with contentment. Thank you, Ben, she murmured, her voice soft, for showing me that connection can be a choice, a journey, not just a season. He smiled, holding her close. I'm glad you're here. 6. I wouldn't want it any other way. And as they sat together, their bond growing deeper with each passing day, they both knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, two beings from different worlds, united by a choice that defied the stars.